I came here to speak about something else, something that looks very sinister. As a matter of fact, and Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to have 2 items to show to the Senate with regard to the Takata airbag crisis.
Without objection.
It looks kind of sinister. Unfortunately, because it is. It's supposed to save lives, not kill lives. This is an airbag. It's obviously already been inflated. And where it goes is right in the steering wheel. So when you get in an accident, this thing inflates and it fills up with gases within a split second. And of course, that protects you from your head coming forward, your torso, your upper torso coming forward and being injured. But what happens if this is malfunctioning? And what happens if its very manufacture causes it to malfunction under conditions? Well, let me show you what happens. Now, I said that these things look pretty sinister. Indeed, this is pretty sinister, Mr. President, because this is a fragment that was in the metal casing in one of these airbags that in Florida, when it malfunctioned because the explosive force of the ammonium nitrate that created the gas was so explosive that it ripped apart the metal casing, and this part came flying into the face of the driver, severely injuring the driver. In this case, it hit the forehead. I have told the Senate on many occasions that fragments of metal like this have come out just within the Orlando area of my state. They found a woman in the middle of an intersection where she had had a collision. And when the police arrived, they found out that she was dead. She had bled to death. They looked at her neck, and it was slashed. The police's immediate response was that this was a homicide. And upon reflection, because she had had a collision in the intersection that otherwise would have been a major fender bender, but because of the defective Takata airbag, it sent a piece of metal like this into her neck and cut her jugular vein. Near Orlando, a firefighter, a big strapping 6'4" hunk of a man. He doesn't have an eye anymore because a piece of metal fragment such as this on a Takata airbag came out when there was nothing more than a fender bender. When this bag exploded, it again sent out a piece of metal. In his case, that firefighter doesn't have the sight in one eye because a piece of metal fragment hit him. And unfortunately, that has happened all over the country. And unfortunately, it's happened with a great deal of, shall we say, dragging of feet and cover up and obfuscation. These airbags are supposed to save lives, but when they fail, they rupture violently and they send metal fragments right at the driver or the passenger. Now, these Takata airbags have had such explosive force. So what's behind it? Well, our staff on the Commerce Committee has just produced a report which I am releasing today. It's an update on this report, which found that through a review of recently obtained internal documents in the Takata Corporation, that Takata employees routinely manipulated safety testing data. Now, that would be bad enough, but let's see the consequence of this. This drip, drip, drip approach to now substantial number of recalls. 1 million vehicles recalled in 1 week, 1 million more the next. There's no end in sight. As a matter of fact, a few days ago, there was a Reuters report that said that in addition to the already 20+ million recalls of Takata airbags, Reuters reported that an additional 70 to 90 million Takata airbags may have to be recalled right here in the United States. Can you imagine what that's going to do to all these poor auto dealers? I mean, don't even speak about the person that is in the greatest jeopardy, the one that's behind that wheel, driving that car with an explosive grenade right in front of their face, and the grenade may go off. But can you imagine the poor auto dealers, the Toyota, the Hondas, and you can go through a number. Let me tell you the last person killed. It was in a Ford F-150 pickup truck, and it was in South Carolina. And by the time people got to the truck after a truck crash that would not have killed him, he was dead because, again, of a fragment like this. I wish you could see this thing. I wouldn't want that hitting me with an explosive force that inflates that airbag in less than 1 second. Well, that's why the Commerce Committee has decided to jump all over this. We've been doing it for the last 2 years. We had a hearing on this 2 years ago. And on the current recall, I said in excess of 20 million. It's actually 29 million. With these deflective inflators, that's because 9 people are dead and dozens are injured. And now we find out that in all, there may be 120 million airbags that will eventually, in the United States alone, have to be recalled. And if you want a shocking figure, that may be in excess of 260 million airbags recalled worldwide. Now, knowing of all these problems, it's puzzling that the consent order that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration signed with Takata allows the continued production of ammonium nitrate-based inflators indefinitely. And then they said that certain ones had to be phased out by 2018. Why isn't the NHTSA, why aren't they taking a more aggressive approach? And what's going on after all of these inflators based on what we see with ammonium nitrate have been exploding? The essence of this and of the report that we are releasing today as an addendum to the previous report is that the current recall may have to be redone. Why? Because auto manufacturers are installing new live grenades into people's cars as replacements for the old live grenades. And according to Reuters and the New York Times, there are also internal documents that show Takata officials were aware of these consistent problems at its manufacturing plants. These reports claim that officials knew of manufacturing issues that could lead to moisture contamination, contaminating that ammonium nitrate wafer inside of the airbag inflator. And so this just all the more adds to the body of evidence. Last June, the Oversight and Investigation staff of the Commerce Committee released a report on the Takata airbag fiasco showing that the company knew there were serious production and testing issues dating back more than a decade. And that's why we wanted to release this report today. That through a thorough review of recently obtained internal documents of Takata, that Takata employees routinely manipulated the safety testing data. For example, in this report, in a 2005 memo to the Takata vice president, an engineer of Takata explained that the integrity of the validation reports is in serious question. End of quote. And that engineer continued, these are not trivial changes in that the data clearly is in violation of the customer specs. And it's altered to meet what the customer demands. That's my paraphrasing. The engineer called that, however, quote, a clear misrepresentation of the facts, end of quote. That's what the Takata engineer said to one of the Takata vice presidents back in 2005. That's 11 years ago. So then in a 2006 email, a different engineering manager explained that testing reports were, quote, cherry-picked, and a Takata employee was schmoozed, in quotes, to accept deviations in the data. So was he schmoozed or intimidated? Whatever it was altering what was the truth. The manager concluded, this is the Takata manager, this is back in 2006, that's 10 years ago, concluded, quote, the plant should have been screaming bloody murder long ago, end of quote. Well, if I were a lawyer making a case to a jury, I'd rest my case right now. The fact is, we're not lawyers arguing to a jury. We're here to try, as senators, to protect the American people. And since this data manipulation has continued even after the recalls had been announced and the rupturing inflators had caused deaths and injuries, and yet the data manipulation was continuing. Give you an example. A 2010 presentation explains that an experimental inflator was experiencing a significant safety and weld quality issue. According to that presentation, Takata, Japan, and this is quotes, Takata, Japan was informed of these results, but altered them and reported good results to Honda, end of quote. Furthermore, even when these issues were raised to senior Takata employees, no action was taken. In a Takata director's notes from 2013, he explains that he shared his view that the range of a certain recall might be a, quote, violation of our moral obligation to protect the public, end of quote. Let me repeat that. A violation of our moral obligation to protect the public came from a Takata director. Wow. The engineer raised these concerns with Takata's senior vice president of quality assurance, but the vice president failed to take action to address them. These new documents that we note in this report from the committee, they speak for themselves. Takata failed to prioritize the safety of its products. And as a result, 9 people are dead and dozens are injured. And even after exploding Takata airbags had killed these innocent people, the company employees continued to manipulate safety testing data. This is not only inexcusable, it's reprehensible. Now, we've got these thousands of automobile dealers around the country that have sold vehicles with the Takata airbags. They cannot sell a new vehicle unless, if that vehicle is under recall because of a Takata airbag, under law, they cannot sell a new vehicle. Also, rental car companies that have more than 15 cars cannot rent cars if they are under recall. But used car dealers can sell used cars that have a defective Takata airbag in them under recall without fixing it. I really feel for our automobile dealers. And I really feel for our automobile dealers also, because what in the world are they going to do with the customers now screaming, replace this airbag, when in fact there are not enough replacement airbags. And in fact, because the National Highway Safety, I'll get it right, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration has, in fact, allowed some of these replacements to go in with this ammonium nitrate. This is a horrendous situation. And so I come to the floor today. This has been going on for over 2 years that we have brought this out in a hearing in the Senate Commerce Committee. And I urge today Takata and NHTSA to do what should have been done long ago. Stop producing these ammonium nitrate airbags and get them out of people's vehicles. And oh, by the way, give your automobile dealers some relief. And how about putting the American driving public that is driving around with one of these things in their face some consideration and put them first? And hopefully we will see some more action on this. Mr. President, I yield the floor.